So we are already at that point in the season, and the Cleveland Browns pretty much have their sights completely set on round 1 of the playoffs. So now that the regular season is over, I want to grade every player's season on this team, because there was so much that happened over the course of the last 17 to 18 weeks, and so many unexpected guys stepped up in big moments. Before I get into this video, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 20k subscribers, and your support truly means the world. Alright, so just to clarify things before I start off this video, all of these ratings are completely opinion based, and they are based off the expectations coming into the year, and I am no expert, so I could be completely wrong about certain guys. And feel free to let me know where you disagree in the comments below. And also, I obviously can't get to every single player on the roster, but I'm going to try to cover almost everyone that consistently plays. Alright, so starting off with the defensive side of the ball, the defensive line has really been a huge part of this team's success. Myles Garrett is of course the captain of that line, and really he's one of the superstars of the league. And if holdings were properly called on him, he would unanimously be the defensive player of the year, and honestly, even the MVP. He just impacts the game in so many ways, and because of that, I'm going to give him an A grade. On the other side of that line is somebody that Cleveland brought in this past offseason to make up for losing Clowney in Zadarius Smith. And he has definitely done a better job. He came into the season as the 83rd ranked player in the league, and this season he had 18 tackles and 5.5 sacks. And according to PFF, his rating is at 82.6. So I'm going to stick with that, but round him up to a B. Alright, now moving on to the interior line. This is an area of the team that got torched last year, and that's why they brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. He obviously plays a position that doesn't put up a ton of stats, so unless you're like a scout, it's a hard position to grade. But I've definitely noticed that runs are getting stuffed at the line so much more this year. He's a guy that does the dirty work in the trenches, and because of that, I had to at least give him a very solid B-. He's been everything we thought he would be. And next to him is Jordan Elliott, who has provided a lot of spark and plays disruptive football. He's always pressuring and finding ways to get to the quarterback however he can. And he's a guy that's really bursted onto the scene this year, so he's definitely exceeded expectations, so I'm gonna give him a B. Now moving on to Okoronkwo, he is a guy that brings bouncing off the walls type of energy, and he's honestly one of my favorite guys on the defense. He's also goofy as well. On the season, he has 22 tackles and 4.5 sacks, and like I said, he's just a big part of this defense in terms of depth and stuff, so I gotta give my boy a B+. Alright, so I kinda realized while making this so far, I can only talk about the main starters, because I wanted to talk about guys like Alex Wright, Mo Hurst, and Shelby Harris, but I feel like those type of guys are already so underrated and have been huge, so there's just no point in me talking about them, because you already know they're getting good grades. Alright, moving on to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. This is a guy who brings the heat in terms of pregame fits, but that's not what this grading scale is about. This year, he has 72 solo tackles and 3.5 sacks, and he also has 2 interceptions. He's a B+ in my eyes, because he's definitely met and maybe even exceeded expectations. Real fast, before I continue, I gotta apologize on how boring the defensive side of this video is, because literally everyone has just been so good. So obviously, nobody is really gonna have a bad grade, but offense is when things will get interesting. Now moving on to Anthony Walker, he's been a leader on this defense. I've seen his mic'd up clips. He's had 44 tackles so far this season. I'ma just keep it brief and give him a B-. Also, Sione Takitaki, to me, he's been at least a B+. He's a great player and has really stepped up. Alright, now moving on to the corners, we all know that Denzel Ward has his side of the field on complete lock, and man, when he was injured, you could notice his absence, and he gets an A-. And for his co-partner in Martin Emerson, you already know he's an A, because he's put together a Pro Bowl season, and I definitely don't think anyone expected him to be this level of good. And to round out the defense with safety, Juan Thornhill was brought in from the Chiefs with Super Bowl experience. He's had a few quiet games. I'm gonna give him a C+, but let me know what you guys think. Also, I can't move on to the offense before I talk about Greg Newsome, and to me, he has beyond exceeded expectations by far, so I'm giving him an A-. Alright, now finally, to move on to the offense, I'm going to start out with the QB position, because wow, has it been a wild ride for the team with this position this year. Alright, so for Deshaun Watson, I'm not really exactly sure what his expectations were coming into this season, but honestly, for the situation he was in, I think he played well. and of course was 5-1 in his 6 games played, so obviously no complaints there, even though it sucked to lose that Steelers game on the road. But his comeback with a broken shoulder against the Ravens was legendary. And it kind of sucks how this fan base has turned on him, but I definitely understand where the hate comes from, obviously. So all in all, I'm gonna give him a C+ for his services. Alright, now for DTR, there were no expectations for him this year. He had a good preseason though, and overall, I think he stepped up to the challenge when his number was called. And that Ravens game wasn't really his fault because he had almost no notice and no time to prepare for it. But man was he bad, and because of that, I'm gonna grade him a C. Now for PJ Walker, he actually started out hot, and the Browns were finding crazy ways to win with him under center. But he really fell off towards the end of the year, and he couldn't read the field very well, and he cost the Browns that Seattle game. So I'm going to give him a C-. And then last but definitely not least, for Joe Flacco, he's an obvious A+. He's been playing like one of the best QBs in the whole league out of nowhere, and before the Browns picked him up, he was 3-14 in his post-Ravens career. So this has just been a crazy resurgence, and I can't wait to see if we can get one final run of Flacco magic in the postseason. Alright, now for the running backs, I'm going to try to speed things up. So Jerome Ford to me gets a B+ because when Nick Chubb went down, he had a massive hole to fill, and he has done everything he's been asked of and more. And he's starting to make explosive plays. And for Kareem Hunt, I wasn't sure how much more he had left in the tank coming into this season, but it turns out that the answer was a lot. And he's been a great spark for this team in the red zone, so I'm going to give him a B. Now for the offensive line, I'm just going to grade them as a whole unit, because there have just been so many injuries, and honestly, that's why I'm giving them an A-. They have maneuvered through so many different obstacles throughout the year, and the fact that they are still giving production is pretty incredible. Alright, now for the tight ends, David Njoku has really broken out onto the scene ever since Joe Flacco has joined this team. He kind of struggled to get chemistry with the other QBs, so that's why I can't rank him an A+, but he has definitely done a good enough job to get an A-. And for Harrison Bryant, I'm going to give him a C because he's been average, and really, one of the moments I remember from him this season is when he dropped the snap on that tush push against Denver. Now for the last, but definitely not least position for this video is wide receiver. Amari Cooper has been the first Brownie with back-to-back 1,000+ yard receiving seasons, and that game he had in Houston was insane. So I'm giving him an A-. Elijah Moore is a guy that Andrew Berry brought in from the Jets to have good chemistry with Watson, but like Njoku, Flacco is kinda his guy, and on the season, he's had 640 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm giving him a B-. And really, all the other guys down the roster are all young and up-and-coming players, and I'm excited to see the future of guys like Cedric Tillman and David Bell, because their roles will expand if the team loses Amari Cooper due to Watson's contract situation. That's really all I have to say for this video. This has been such a fun year for the Browns, and I can't wait to see how this story ends. It's going to be an anxious couple weeks of waiting. Let me know in the comments below what grades you agreed and disagreed with and why. And if you enjoyed this video and haven't yet, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly means the world. And also, follow me on Instagram @SpencerPremier. But until next time, I will see you all later.